Hey, it's Tim.
And it's Amy. Thanks for joining us here today. In this week's video, we're going to share 8 of the silver linings we discovered this past year. It was our very first year as nomads. There were a lot of ups and downs, and we came out of it with 8 silver linings. I hope you'll stay tuned for the whole video.
Every Wednesday here on our channel, we come out with a new video, typically talking about our early retirement or our nomadic lifestyle. In 2015, we left our careers in our late 40s, and in January of 2020, we sold our home and became full-time nomads.
I hope you'll subscribe to our channel, give us a like, and let's get going with episode 4 of our 4-part series. This is the final of this series.
The first part was that we talked about facts and figures about the year. Where did we sleep? What type of lodging did we have? Just sort of the numbers associated with our year. The second thing that we talked about were our top 10 lessons from the year. What did we learn throughout the year that we thought might be useful for our audience? And then the third part, we talked about our numbers, our entire spending for the year. We try to target $36,000 a year, so we discussed whether or not we made that number or not. And then now here we are today, and we're going to talk about some of the amazing things that came out of our year.
And if you missed any of those, I'm going to have a playlist at the end of the video so you can catch up. I want to speak just for a second about what is a silver lining. It's not just good things happening. It's good things happening out of a bad thing. So it's making lemonade out of lemons, really. And it's something that I've been very actively practicing really my entire adult life. So as I'm taking hits, finding the silver linings to those hits is just a way to get through it. And last year was disappointing, no doubt about it. But we had 8 things that we experienced that I don't think we would have had otherwise. So we would have had other things and other lessons and silver linings, but these are directly because of the absolute horrible year that happened around the world in 2020.
I think Amy kind of briefly touched on this, but I think it's worth mentioning that we really wish our year would have happened. As everybody, I'm sure, in the world wishes this pandemic didn't come together, and that everybody wishes they had a different year. We wish that we had our year as it was planned, and it would have been an amazing year. But there have been amazing things about this year, and I think it's primarily because of our outlook that our year was so amazing. And so I think that's why we feel it's important to share these silver linings that we had coming out of this weird situation for everybody.
And we do want to say that I don't know that everything has silver linings come out of it. Maybe it does, but some people have experienced extreme loss and grief this past year. We aren't going to be dismissing that in any way. So certainly we have extreme empathy in that regard, but this is our travel plans canceled. So even though it's a big deal to us, in the big picture, we have our health, we have each other. We have a lot of very good things happening in our lives. So let's get started with number 1. Okay. Oh, this is a good one for me. The world is now virtual. So when Tim and I were leaving, we were no longer going to be participating in any birthday parties. My favorite dance class at my gym, I never thought I'd go again. We never planned to live there again. I thought I might be able to go on a one-day guest pass once a year, and that was it. Well, now my favorite athletic instructor is teaching online all of her classes, and I'm participating in all kinds of girlfriend time, and we have friends and family chats on Zoom, and now people had to figure out that virtual video technology, and it has made all the world to us that the world of difference to our social life and to being connected while we're far away.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. As a matter of fact, there have been conferences that we were able to participate in that this year that we weren't planning to be at because we were planning to be abroad. And so it's been a great thing to have all these virtual experiences brought to us, basically. So that has been something. I don't know if that all dies once the pandemic is gone and we can go have face-to-face things again, but my thinking is that this might serve us well even in the future as these events just become virtual, just because it's nice to have. They can. Yep.
And also people who might have been scared by the technology and might not have even considered it had to consider it. So they had to figure out video technology and how to get on a Zoom call or something like that. Well, now when we want to Zoom with them from Asia, they can do that. So that is a huge one.
Yep. So the second thing we're going to touch on is how beautiful the United States is. So we had plans about 10 years down the road. We were going to be spending extended amounts of time in the U.S. We had planned to be abroad for starting in 2020 for roughly a decade. And so the fact that we were forced to be here in the States made us go do a lot of things in the U.S. that we weren't planning to do for a decade. And the United States is incredibly beautiful. I think we sort of had an intuitive understanding of this, but as we would show up in a place and experience this new place, whether it's the desert in Arizona, we had low expectations about the desert in Arizona, Asheville, North Carolina, and the mountains, or the Pacific Northwest. Every place we went this year completely blew us away. Just consistently, we were in, I don't know what the word is, just blown away, in awe of how beautiful this country is, and how lucky we were to experience this now. So it was, again, a silver lining was just the beauty that we experienced throughout the year.
And it wasn't just natural beauty, because New Orleans was not natural. It was also natural beauty, but every single home in the mid-city area that we stayed in New Orleans, every house was incredibly painted and unique, and a lot of pride and ownership. And that wasn't just natural beauty. There were also beautiful trees everywhere, which was great, and the weather was so perfect. So it wasn't only the natural beauty. And I think we thought that coming from Colorado, we have such a beautiful home state in Colorado that I don't think we were aware how incredible the rest of the United States is.
Yeah,
so.
I moronically suggested that, I had in my head that Colorado had a lock on natural beauty, that somehow just, I guess, moving from Texas and going there, it's like, wow, this is amazing. And it still is amazing. But as we went throughout the country, I think there's equal amounts of awe to be had throughout the country.
What a surprise that was. Number 3, we met a lot of our viewers. We did meet our very first viewers in January of 2020, and that was amazing. But throughout the entire year, we kept meeting them. We thought we'd just meet for a couple people before we left internationally. But when we were in the United States, we've been meeting viewers the entire time, outside and socially distanced, of course. And the cool thing is, it's not only epic fun, which it is, but really cool that we know more about who our viewers are. And YouTube gives an enormous amount of analytics as to who's logged in and watching your channel. And that would be their gender, their age, their geography, stuff like that. But when people are watching as a couple, we have really no idea who's watching. And it turns out that most of the people that are watching are couples. And that was, as far as who's reaching out to us and who we're meeting, at least, is a lot of couples. So it was really just great to kind of hear our viewers, I don't know, their life stories, their fire stories, their dreams, their passions, their fears, all of it. And just to understand what's on the other side of the camera, I thought was just incredible.
I think something else that is a sort of a silver lining associated with this is that, for me anyway, these were smaller, sort of more intimate things. Because of the pandemic, we obviously weren't meeting in large groups. We might meet with just one couple, or at the most maybe 2 couples. It was sort of nice for me. I'm a little introverted, and so I love interacting with folks, but I like it to be a little more cozy. And so this was great that the pandemic forced this. I think if Amy were actually setting up all these sessions, there'd be 30 people at every get-together that we had. Assuming we could find that many audience members in a place, she would have that many people there.
But here's the thing, is I also like the intimate, so I like to get to know people. So good news about that. So you're going to take number 4.
Yep. So the 4th thing that we're going to say about our year that was a silver lining is we figured out how to make our budget work in the USA. So that was something we had no expectations that our $36,000 a year budget would work if we were stuck here in the country. As a matter of fact, once the pandemic came out, we just assumed our budget was going to be blown. And so a silver lining was we figured out how to make it work being stuck here in the US. So that gives us even more confidence that as we launch and we go abroad, that our budget's going to work even better once we're in places that are more affordable. So again, another silver lining.
And number 5 is all the friends and family that we saw. So I'm a big community person, and we had some intentions to meet some friends and family in 2020 that did fall through because of the pandemic, which was sad, but we ended up seeing an enormous amount of friends and family as we're meandering all over the United States, and it was incredible. So just that extra quality time with family and friends.
Close friends, like my roommate from college, as well as a friend of mine from the town I grew up in. We got to spend some time with him and his wife, so that was fantastic. So we've had just really good quality socializing this year that's been different than sort of socializing we've had in the past. So I think it improved the quality. The pandemic improved the quality of our socializing this year.
And it slowed things down. So yeah, so that was a really nice thing, that we just took our time, slowed things down, and just had a lot of fun with it.
Yep. So the 6th thing on our list is going to be that we were open to new experiences that we thought we weren't necessarily going to be open to. As an example, whenever we first launch our plans, we really like being in cities. We like urban environments, and so our plans were to try and be close-ish to urban environments so that we could go and do and see the things that a city has to offer. Well, one of our first sits, actually the first sit after the pandemic happened, was on a farm. And so this was a 19-acre farm. They had a whole bunch of animals that we watched after. This certainly would not have been on our radar if it weren't for the pandemic. This is something that I think Amy, until we actually got there, Amy was hesitant about this idea of this particular situation. And I think for the year, I'm going to say that this was certainly in the top 2 or 3 things that we did, maybe even the top thing that we did throughout the year, just from an experience standpoint. And if it weren't for the pandemic, we wouldn't have been open to that.
And it wasn't just the farmers wanted, but Tim mentioned the desert earlier. We didn't know how beautiful the desert, and so they kind of tie into the beauty of America. But just finding beauty in areas and being in the desert, for example. So we kind of like more lush green places. It's funny that we come from Colorado, but we like more lush green places. And so when we ended up in December in Scottsdale, we weren't really looking forward to the beauty of Arizona. Well, we really fell in love with it, and that was another nice surprise. And it wasn't just about our surroundings. It was also just understanding a little bit more about our boundaries and leaning into new experiences, and that's been really a very big silver lining.
Valuable, yep.
Number 7 is one we had to dig a little deep on, and that is that our first nomadic year was done with kind of training wheels on. So even though we had COVID, which certainly was not training wheels on, we were here in the United States, a place that we feel incredibly comfortable with. We've traveled heavily all around the United States, but it's one language, we had our own car, we have one currency, so we know how to do things here. So the newness of very unusual new places to us was, we didn't really have to test that out. And I know that we would have risen to the challenge all over the world, and we're really, really excited about doing that soon. But in the meantime, it kind of allowed us to do the training wheels before we went off to more far-flung places.
Yep. So the last and final thing, the number 8, is going to be that we had this accelerated learning curve for the year. So our first year being nomadic. So I think it prepared us for the future better than if we just had the year that we had planned and everything went like it was planned. So I think
Nothing went like it was planned.
The fact that nothing went like it's planned actually gave us some skills that we might have learned these over time, like the idea that we are just comfortable with change, the idea that we don't have to, as a matter of fact, at the moment, in 14 days, we're not sure where we're going to be sleeping.
We're fine.
We're fine with that. We have a decent idea, but nonetheless, we're comfortable with it. And I think if you would have told us this a year ago as we were launching our journey, that would have not been something we would even suggest that we would have been comfortable with. So having this accelerated learning curve has been valuable to us and something that we also see as our silver lining, our final silver lining for the year. And actually, I think that we probably could make this list even longer. I think we have, like I said earlier, we've had an amazing year. And so in the midst of this pandemic, I know that seems like maybe an unempathetic thing to suggest, but we've turned this lemon into a lemonade, and we've had a great year.
And one thing that we've learned is that it's very hard to be watching House Hunters International when we have this wanderlust. So last night we were supposed to be planning our conversation today. We didn't do it because we watched 5 back-to-back episodes of House Hunters International, and we want to go to Orvieto, Italy, and Bali, Indonesia, and Da Nang, Vietnam, and we even watched one on Porto Penasco where we just were 2 months ago. We just were there. We still watched it. So in Milan. So we are dying to leave the country. So if you have that wanderlust, just a warning of careful to check that out, because our feet are itching to get out of the U.S. And what I want to know from you this week is, what are your silver linings? Again, I'm not just looking for good things, which is great. Maybe you fired this year. Maybe you had a baby. All kinds of amazing things happened this year. Not the things that were going to happen anyway. The things that happened because of the black cloud that descended over the world. What good came out of it? I can't wait to see what you put down below, because that is just going to be a big positive hug, and I'm excited.
Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you in a week.
See you next Wednesday.